I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Dana Hork.
I think where brands get in trouble is they try to add on a social impact benefit later on or feel like it's something they're supposed to do. But that becomes really challenging if you haven't defined your values in the first place to know even what to show up in and when. And so the real key is to know who you are, what matters to you, and why you're doing what you're doing.
Dana Hork is the founder and CEO of Beers with Friends, an agile creative agency that helps challenger brands solve high-stakes problems in just 5 days. A brand leader, entrepreneur, and storyteller, Dana partners with CMOs and marketing leaders to deliver impactful brand solutions quickly and without the bureaucracy of traditional agencies. She has held leadership roles at Wonder, Walmart, Jet.com, PepsiCo, and JPMorgan. Dana holds an MBA from Harvard, an MPA from Columbia, and a BA from the University of Pennsylvania. A frequent speaker and podcast guest, she has been featured in Time, Forbes, and Ad Age. My interview with Dana Hork is coming right up, but first.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
There's a good chance you're dealing with a middleman, like me, when you get your medicines. That's because PBMs and insurers are often the same company. We even own big chain pharmacies and are buying your doctor's office. We decide what medicines you can get, where you get them, and how much you pay. It's a win-win. For me.
When middlemen own it all, you lose. Visit phrma.org/middlemen to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
Dana Hork, welcome to On Brand.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I am excited to chat, but the first question when your name crossed my inbox with a brand name like Beers with Friends, I mean, I guess the story might be self-explanatory, but I have to ask, what led you to that fun concept to build your agency brand around?
Sure. So you already hit the punchline, which is Beers with Friends is an agency. And we are a new and refreshing take on the agency model. So at the core, we help ambitious CMOs at challenger brands solve high stakes creative problems in just 5 days. So what's different about me being agency side is I actually grew up brand side. So I'm a longtime brand side marketer. My co-founder is a longtime agency creative leader. And together we really saw a gap in the market and how CMOs at fast-paced growing brands need smart, strategic, and high-impact work quickly without all of the slow timelines and bloated budgets and bureaucracy of traditional agencies. So if a marketer's traditional options are option A, leveraging your in-house team, or option B, finding an agency of record, Beers with Friends is option C, an agency on call. We have built a 5-day sprint called a beer run, sticking with the beer theme, designed to tackle any brand strategy, campaign development, marketing activation work in increments of 5 days. So for each client brief we get, we develop a plan for how many and what type of beer runs you need. We align on a clear deliverable coming out of each one. We curate a best-in-class team of creative and strategic minds for each and every project. And we pull the right people together, not who's available. And we work with one client at a time. So you're getting our full focus and attention. And our roster includes a lot of challenger brands and innovative brands, everything from Good Wipes and Kizik and Perfect Bar to more established players like Virgin Galactic, Dig, and Grubhub.
Awesome. Well, I love the beer run concept, the analogy. What does it look like at the end of that sprint? What does an organization have that they didn't have before?
Yeah, so the answer to that question depends on the brief. And we always start there with client projects and say, what do you need? And how much money do you have to do that thing? And then we work backwards into, how are we going to get there? So clients come to us with a need for everything from, hey, we need a brand campaign, to, hey, we're launching in 3,000 new doors in retail and we need a new concept to come up with for that launch. They might come to us with, hey, we are really trying to win over a new consumer segment. How might we come up with, creative or marketing assets to win them over? Might be, hey, we're going to this particular event or activation. We want to show up in a new way. How could we do that? To, hey, we want to pitch for some budget, and we need a deck of ideas to try to sell in. So it ranges the gamut from, quick turn stuff like, hey, we need a gap to fill. We need a writer's room to quickly jam on some out of home headlines, all the way up to we need a big global international brand campaign. And we want to work in this agile way.
I love it. So you talked earlier about challenger brands. How would you define a challenger brand and what makes them unique?
Yeah, I think for us, challenger brands have a vision of the way the world should be that isn't the way it is right now. So they have a belief. They say, hey, look, the status quo has been X. We think there's a better way. We're reimagining it and we're doing something different to fill that gap. Maybe it's we're innovating on packaging. Maybe it's we're innovating on product or ingredients. Maybe it's innovation around the delivery mechanism. But there's a point of view that there's a better way. And there's entrepreneurial energy and DNA at the core of the team trying to make that happen. It's the same energy we have as an agency trying to reinvent the agency client dynamic. It's that same entrepreneurial DNA that we see brand side.
Interesting. So as you talk about brands and organizations, you've, again, with challenger brands, startups to big businesses, what are the differences and similarities that you see in those kind of swings of client size and type?
I think a similarity that we see across all of our brands is a desire to innovate, to break the mold, to do something different, and to break through. I think a difference that we see among brands that we work with is how the organization is currently set up and able to move quickly against that goal. Some are very flat. Everyone gets around the table, jams on ideas. Everyone's feedback is heard. You make a decision and you move on. Other organizations have much more hierarchy and process. And but they're looking for innovation to bring into that model and find shortcuts around that. So everyone's got a desire to do it with more agility and speed. Just organizations might already have different ways of working, and their ability to take that up quickly might differ because of that.
And when it comes to like varying sizes, and sometimes it's the same brand at different stages. So like working with Jet.com and helping to shape the brand from launch to acquisition, what are the key ingredients for entrepreneurs listening, thinking about building a brand that scales as well?
Yeah, so first, let me define how I think about what a brand actually is.
Okay.
So at Beers with Friends, we believe a brand isn't what you say it is, it's what others say about you when you're not in the room. So it's not just a logo or a tagline, it is a perception that is shaped by every interaction that people have with you. We've codified this in a framework called Brand in a Can. And it's an actionable framework that brands of all sizes can use to think about crafting their brand. And it's got 3 components. The first is ingredients. What's in the can? This is your brand DNA. It's your target audience truths, it's product benefits, it's personality traits, it's what makes you you. The second component is identity. It's what's on the can. So this is your distinctive assets and differentiating actions. They're the things that people can see and experience that bring your brand to life. And the third component is impression. It's what does your brand taste like? It's that lasting feeling that you want to leave with people. And it's driven by things like resonance and stickiness and fandom. And so, whether you're a startup going from 0 to 1 or you're a legacy brand trying to refresh, every brand needs to codify their ingredients, their identity, and the impression that they want to leave and put that into practice. That was something I had the great pleasure of doing when I was at Jet. We had a program where we were thinking about all of our brand touch points, everything from the 404 error page to our box and packaging to what our customer service experience was like. And so brands of all stages need to really evaluate all the touch points that they're already doing, that are already part of their existing experience, and think about what that impression is they want to leave, work backwards to put assets into the world and take actions that really bring that to life, and make sure that that's all true to who you are internally with your internal brand ingredients.
That's such a great answer, and you reminded me. I always give brands extra points when I see that they've got a creative 404 page, because it's such a fun brand touch point. And we have any number of awards that we give for things. I think someone should do awards or a ranking for 404 pages. So
I agree, and celebrate the marketers behind them who convinced the product team that this should be on the roadmap and it was worthy of building. So yes, I agree.
On Brand, we'll be right back after this.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Now, back to the show. So when you talk about codifying what the brand is and all of those, in some cases, intangibles, I feel like we go a lot of times to the idea of a brand book. Is it always a book, or are there other ways of codifying what our brand means so that we can communicate that easily to others, both on our team and others that we might need for help on a beer run?
Yeah, so I think a brand book is helpful and it's part of what creates a brand, but it's just a piece. So I think of a brand book as a codification of the assets and approaches that your brand might take. What do you look like? What do you sound like? Some brands have taste component. What does it taste like? What does it feel like? Those are all things that a brand book can codify. For what it's worth, brand books are going to live in a lot of different forms going forward than they have in the past. If your brand book only sits as a PDF somewhere in your drive, it's going to be useless. It's going to live in AI tools. It's going to live in many more places. So the idea of a book
Right.
is an outdated construct, but the idea of documenting it in a single place and making it available in other touch points is I think useful. But what I think people miss out is that the brand book really is supposed to codify those assets, but it doesn't really tell you your actions. It doesn't tell you what to do or how to do it. So things like your employee experience need to feel connected to your consumer experience. If you are telling consumers that you're empathetic and you're kind and you're responsive, and then you've got an employee experience, whether it's recruiting process or a retention process around your existing employees that doesn't demonstrate those same characteristics, you've got dissonance. And that's where you start to erode trust as a brand. And that's the number one thing that happens with brands to lose when they lose trust, is that they're presenting themselves in different ways to different audiences and different stakeholders, and people realize that it doesn't add up.
That was a great answer, and again, I think a better definition of how we codify that in the many different forms beyond just a book. One thing that I think is fascinating, one of the many things that I think is fascinating about your bio, is that you've been on both sides of the table. So what advice do you have for CMOs or founders looking to get the most out of an agency partnership?
Yeah. So for CMOs and marketers looking to get the most out of an agency partnership, the number one thing that you can do is figure out what you need. It sounds obvious, but a lot of times, and I think this sometimes goes sideways in agency of record relationships, you're hoping the agency tells you what you need and then goes and delivers against it. Now, you may not know how to get done what you need to get done, but you need to know what you want to get done and why you want to get it done. So the number one thing that an agency needs is clear direction from a brand to say, this is what we want to achieve. And a great way to do that is to start with for whom, so that. So we want, this thing that we want to do is for X number of consumer, for X type of consumer, for X type of stakeholder, so that they can do this thing, think this thing. You really need to know the transformation that you want to have happen. And then the agency's job is to figure out how to make that transformation happen. What levers do we have available to us? How do we increase our chances of success? But if you're not clear on the change that you want to make in the first place, it makes for a very challenging agency-client relationship.
Great answer that is deceptively simple, because I love that you provided also a fill in the blank there. What was that again? Just wanted to repeat.
For whom, so that. So, for whom, so that is, our product, our service, our marketing is for time-starved, busy families so that they can live better, right?
Yeah.
To take a Walmart example. So you've really got to know, or this is, for people attending XYZ festival so that they try our product, right? Or that they think that we're a brand for them, whatever it is. It's about codifying the transformation that you want to have happen with the who you want to transform. So it's not about what you want to do. It's about the impact that you want to make on somebody else. So a lot of times brands come and, they might say, I want to sell more widgets. Well, that's great, but who do you want to sell more widgets to? Like, who are they? Why aren't they doing it now? Why aren't they buying it now? And if your first answer is because they don't know about us, you need to keep digging. And so you might say, hey, we want XYZ, busy moms. That's who we're serving so that we can make their life easier. And the reason that they can't do that right now is because, I don't know, they're stuck in their old ways, or they're ashamed of doing this thing. Like the barrier and the enemy that stands in the way of who you want to get to do, think, or say something is the most important thing that brands need to think about. If you know who your enemy is, you know how you're gonna make change and drive that transformation. If you don't know who your enemy is and you just want people to buy your stuff because you're not going to be particularly successful.
Yeah. And again, I think sometimes in an attempt at clarity, we sometimes forget the simplicity and kind of unspool things and make an even bigger mess of it. So again, I love that fill in the blank reminder, a great tool for folks listening out there. So you've been at the forefront of some meaningful social impact initiatives like the Equal Pay Pledge, a community diaper program. How do you see the role of brands and leaders in driving social change?
Yeah, so it comes back to those brand ingredients. So the brands that are most successful at driving social change and social impact have the desire to do so from the beginning at their core. It's core to their DNA. It's who they are. It's what makes them tick. It's part of their reason to be in the first place. I think where brands get in trouble is they try to add on a social impact benefit later on or feel like it's something they're supposed to do. But that becomes really challenging if you haven't defined your values in the first place to know even what to show up in and when. And so the real key is to know who you are, what matters to you, and why you're doing what you're doing. So just as a for instance, when I worked at jet.com, our in those early days, our value was really to bring efficiencies to the supply chain, to bring costs down so that folks could shop in an efficient way. And we had that as core to our DNA. And we ended up getting a call from the Obama White House that said, hey, we actually have this challenge that we're working on. 1 in 3 families can't afford diapers in this country. Do you have any innovative ideas for ways that you could activate against that? And so we put a SWAT team together that I led internally within Jet to figure out how we could make a diaper pack that pulled out extra costs and made it much more affordable for families. And so long story short, we developed an innovative diaper pack along with one of our partners. It was a truly cross-functional project. And the reason that we were able to move quickly and get the support for that is because pulling costs out of supply chain was core to our DNA to begin with. It was part of our early why. So I would just encourage brands to know your own why, know your values, and your social impact initiatives will flow from your why.
Yeah, and I think that is that fit is so important. That laddering back to the why is key, and I think they're good reminders because I think the time that we find ourselves in right now, it seems like things are in a state of flux, and especially around social impact and what we should or shouldn't do. But I think what you just reminded us of looking back to your people is key, especially when it could feel challenging to speak up and step up.
Yep, absolutely.
So I am, as we talk about social impact and getting back to the why, these are topics that constantly make me smile. And it is now my pleasure to get to ask you, Dana, for a brand that has made you smile recently.
Yes, so something that makes me smile is an unexpected brand partnership that really takes 1+1 and makes 3. So I recently returned from Expo West, had the ability to sample lots of products, and a collaboration that stuck out to me was Ithaca Hummus and Graza. So they teamed up to create a new olive oil and sea salt hummus. And what makes me smile about that partnership is 3 things. One, the relationship between the two brands was actually born out of a human connection. I read that Graza's co-founder had reached out to Ithaca on LinkedIn a few years ago. So it makes me smile because it gives me hope that we're all not so far away from each other. And maybe our next big partnership or next big initiative is just one LinkedIn DM away. 2, it brings DNA from each brand together, Ithaca's square packaging and Graza's green color palette, in a way that creates more value by being together, but doesn't diminish what each brand contributes. So each brand got to be itself and make the end product better by being there. And third, I would say that it's just a great example of how disruptive, innovative brands are leveraging partnerships to create new news out of what they already have. I think a lot of times brands and the people within them that are running them think they need to always create something out of nothing. They need to create something new, something that's never been done, something that's different. But if you actually just start with your assets and what you already have and audit your advantages, you'll be able to create newness much more efficiently and effectively. So my advice to brands is always start where you are, figure out what you have, and figure out how you can contribute that to the world and combine it with other brands in ways that create newness, create conversation, and create innovation.
And that's such a great example. And like you said, by doing that, you really then are able to realize that 1 + 1 = 3. Dana, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Folks can find me on LinkedIn, Dana Hork, or they can visit Beers with Friends at bwfagency.com.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can find at onbrandpodcast.com. Dana Hork, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thank you so much, Nick.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.